hi to Michaela.
Hi, Michaela.
Or not. By the way, she got married this weekend. I know. And sickness and in health happened faster than she expected. All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. I'm so excited that we get to go back to practicum today and work with those awesome kids. And I want to say that I'm especially excited that you all are going to work with the kids because I've had wonderful practicum students in the past. And I've had wonderful reviews, summaries of how the first session went in the past. So don't get me wrong. But what I love is that yours were so detailed. And that tells me that you really care about the little things and what's important. And how many of you know who John Wooden is? He's a famous person. A lot of leadership books and motivational talks involve his name. Who was he?
UCLA's basketball coach.
UCLA's basketball coach, and he is now, of course, retired, but he is famous for being one of the best basketball coaches of all time. And what happened, and what's mentioned in a lot of different motivational talks, is what happened on the first day that he went to work with his players. They were all ready. They were like, wow, this is going to be like mind-blowing working with him. And do you know what he did on that first day of practice, those of you who've heard of him? Do you know?
Like make them take their socks off and practice putting them on?
Yes. He asked them all to take off their socks and shoes. And he wanted to show them how to put on their socks so that they don't get a blister. So he's thinking of not only the fundamentals of basketball, but he's thinking of the whole, kind of how we think of the whole child, but he's thinking that physically, you have to have your physical needs met too, your social and emotional needs. If you are in pain, the fundamentals are not going to go as well, are they? So he starts from the tiniest little detail as how to put those socks on in a way that you don't get blisters. So I'm comparing that as an analogy to you, and the details that you're giving me tells me that you're a get-it kind of person because you care about those details. And that is really the sign of a very effective teacher, because if you can do the little things right, you can do the big things right. So good job. I'm excited for these kids to work with you, and I'm excited for your future students. So, all right, a few little notes to think about today when you go into practicum. One is, oftentimes the trend is on day one, they're on their best behavior. On day two, session two, they might test you a bit. So I just want you to be prepared for that. So something you can do is head off any kind of negative behavior before they can even, come to your circle. And some of them, they might run and slide, and some of them might be very polite and sit down. You never know what it's going to be. But before they can do anything wrong, tell them everything you liked about the first session. Say, I really like the way you gave me your full attention, or I really like the way we accomplished a lot. Whatever it is, give them evidence, about meaningful praise. Give them that and set the tone. It's so difficult for them to unravel right after you just gave them a compliment and set a high expectation. If you had a problem with, different people had various problems. Maybe you had a student who talked too much, one that wiggled around too much, someone who didn't talk at all, someone who shut down, all kinds of different things. So what you can do there is you can set a challenge. So today I have a challenge for you. So I'd like to have you take turns talking, or really be a good listener when the other person is talking. Whatever challenge you want to set, I want to challenge you both to have something to say to contribute today. Or I want to challenge you to sit like a fifth grader. I know they're fourth graders. Sit like a fifth grader and practice being a fifth grader. If you have someone who's wiggly, you might want to get chairs, or you may want to move to a table. If you're moving to a table, let me know so I can help you find a good place for that. Okay, I did talk to one person through your comments on Canvas about that. By the way, Canvas, the way they have it set up for teachers to put comments, we do not have the function to put anything in italics or underline. So when I give you a book title, I want to italicize it, but I can't, and I want to underline it, but I can't. So I'm just letting you know that's that. Okay. A really great idea someone had was they played the game, but they used the interest inventory for the topics. So it caused the student to elaborate on their interest. What a good idea, huh? Another way to learn more about them if you do decide to play the game is to give them a starter like, over the weekend I like to, and then have them go to town there. You learn more that way. Or after school I like to. Just a thought, okay? Some of the kids are going to ask for the game because they really like it. So don't forget to make it like a speaking skills activity where it's not just sitting and talking, but they're getting up and they're trying to make eye contact and maybe using some gestures and that kind of thing. But you can also use it as currency, or figure out their currency, meaning what is important to them. If they love the game, you can let them know. We can't play it every time, but if you work really hard, I think we could probably play it for 5 minutes. You know, and that gives you some leverage, okay? So it doesn't have to be the game, it could be something else that they really like. Maybe they liked having a joke, and you can bring in a joke each time. So have that something that you can have for currency. Also, if you have a student who has trouble with spelling, ideally, if this was your classroom, if this were your classroom, I would say we want those kids to sound out the words, we want to help them conquer these words, we want to get that dictionary out and have them use the guide words and all of this. However, because we only have 55 minutes-ish with each student for 8 weeks, we don't want the spelling to slow down the other things we need to accomplish. So you may have to choose your battles there. So for example, if it's every now and then you can help them sound out a word, that's okay. But if it's causing you to not get through your lesson, you might say, hey, I'll tell you what, go ahead and just do your best job with the spelling. And if we have time later, we'll go back and edit it. But right now, let's get through the lesson and we'll worry about spelling later. Acknowledge it, that it's important, but let them know that right now we want to get to the lesson, okay? So for those kids who have constant problems with that. All right. Don't be afraid to redirect if you need to, if they do act up a bit, and that's all I have. Are there any questions about what's going on today? Yes.
Would you recommend doing our lesson first and then the assessments, or the
I
assessments first and then the
would.
lesson?
I would, and I'll tell you why. The lesson is usually engaging and fun. And when you've got that going on, then it puts them in the right kind of state for later when you do the spelling. If you start with spelling, it's just kind of, you know what I mean? And so I would do that engaging activity first. Plus, if you don't get to the spelling, okay, let's just imagine something happens and you don't get to it, you could always do your spelling next week, okay? Know that I have a day built in on week 7. I have a margin built in, so if you're not caught up on something, we can use that day. So if you have a student who is absent the first session and you haven't done the Where to Start word test, don't worry about doing it today if you don't have time. I know that would feel really overwhelming to me if I had a lesson and a spelling test. Just stick with your lesson and your spelling test. If you have time, at the end, you can give the Where to Start word test. But if you don't, you can do it next week or the week after. It's okay. We've got time. And that's what teachers do. You have to really look back at your plan and adjust your plan to make it work for your students. Okay? Does that make you feel a little bit more at ease? Okay. If you have a student who leaves for speech and you know they're going to go each time, do any of you have that? Okay. We have a couple in the other class. Here's the thing. In an ideal setting, we would assess every single student exactly the same, right? For this simulation, I need a student who is assessed all the way through. So if you have 3 students, we want to try to assess them all the way through. But in the end, I need at least 1 student who you've assessed with every assessment that we have in place for this practicum. So you have one who's not in speech, right?
Yeah.
So as long as I have that for someone who's not in speech, don't worry about assessing the student who goes to speech if they're not there. It's okay, as long as I have something from you where I can see that you did all of that. Just like Caleb only has 1 person because the teacher says it takes 1 person for this child because this student requires a lot. And we're leaving that up to the teacher's judgment. But it is fair because it all kind of comes out in the wash, doesn't it? Where you have your hands full with someone who's going to demand your attention in a different way, but at the same time, you're just doing 1 assessment compared to other people. But it all works out. So I guess my main goal is that at the end, that you have assessed everyone that you can. Sometimes you'll have a student who has mono and they're out for 3 weeks. So that other student, make sure we have all of that. So if we don't have an assessment from them, we'll have to get that made up. So I just need 1 student from top to bottom. Does that make sense?
Yes.
For those of you who are like, but I have 3 and probably gonna be there every time. Yes, I need all three. I'm sorry, that's the way it works, but that's how we're gonna do it. Because of the nature of practicum and how it works. We have, 8 hours with them total? Less than? We've got to be realistic. Okay? Fair? Good? Okay. Other questions?
So do we just give them like a sheet of notebook paper for the spelling?
Yes, a sheet of notebook paper works great. You can, sometimes people like to type up and have lines on a sheet. Some teachers like to have that spelling list that they always give that has it all ready to go. It's up to you how you do that.
I found this.
Notebook paper's fine.
I found this on Teachers Pay Teachers for free.
There you go.
And then, so if they spell a certain amount of words right, we move on, right? It's sort of like the words your way, or are we only assessing them like once?
They are, okay, so you're talking,
Or the words?
do you know which test you're going to use?
Yeah,
Okay.
I use the ESI.
So the majority of you are using of the 3 tests the middle, right?
Yes.
And each of the tests have a different prescription. So let's see if I peek. Let's see. And you're using the ESI, so
Because the last sentence says if students spell any more, or if any students spell more than 20 words
Yes.
correctly, use the upper.
yes.
So
Yes.
would we move on to
You
the
would
upper
move on to the
and
upper.
they do that?
And then what you want to do on that upper is see if you can get through 5 words,
Okay,
okay, that are spelled correctly.
okay.
And part of this is going to fall into that teacher judgment because there's going to be a point that you're like, I've written so many words as poor kid. I know which
Yeah.
list. And so that's why I wanted to tell you guys about the why. You're figuring out of the 3 lists, where would they fall? And most of you will say either the first, second, or third. A couple of you will be like, none of these, we need a completely different list from my student. And that's okay too. So that's just the difference between an adoption and modification, okay? We're adapting here, you're gonna have to completely modify for a couple of you with students who aren't speaking English, okay? Yes?
Just to clarify, you said we can test them at the same time.
Yes, if you have students who appear to be on the same level, you can give them the test at the same time. That's fine, okay? Yes.
So then if one student doesn't make it, you see what I'm saying,
I would go ahead and just continue with the words and not say anything, just so that it doesn't feel awkward.
okay, so if we have one student that needs to move on, just keep going with
Yeah. We want to preserve their dignity of the student who is not doing as well, and we want to avoid frustration. So that's where you can kind of use some judgment. And back to the rule of thumb is, it's better to give too many words and have more to analyze than not have enough words, okay? Yes.
You said that we could start our list at 11.
Yes.
Can we just do 11 through 26 or whatever the last number is, or do we need to have a certain amount of spellings that we're giving them?
If you give them 11 through 26 and they're getting the majority right, then you know that that's their list, right?
Mhm.
So you won't need to go on to the next list.
Okay, so if I'm giving it to them and they're doing it all really well and they're exceeding what I thought, should I move on to the next
If you
one?
think that they are not missing any, that there's no hesitation, yes, you'll want to go on to the next because that's telling you that they can possibly handle the upper. But we need to have enough of the upper list to know that they can handle it. So give them 5 to 10 words depending on how they did on that. It's so subjective. Do you see where I'm kind of giving you all these different scenarios? So I would probably with you say go 11 through 26 and then 1 through 10. And then that gives you 20 words to look at. Okay? Does that make sense? If you're starting with 11, it's a good idea to go to the next list and do the top 10. Other questions? These are good questions. Okay. So now we're going to completely shift gears and talk about the following week because you will be on fall break on Thursday and we won't be able to talk about this. So we need to prepare for a week from now, okay? So a week from now is really the pressure's off because you don't have a lesson plan due. You will have your lineup, but the main goals, so just to tell you the hierarchy of things we need to do, one is you're going to introduce the idea of 6th grade writing to your students. Don't worry, I'm going to introduce it to you today. The next is you're going to introduce the concept of gratitude with your students. what it means to be grateful. And they're going to fill out a brainstorm sheet, okay? We have write gratitude journal entry number 1 on our list over here, and I'm going to ask you to just cross it off. Because we don't have that time to give it, the time that it needs, we're just gonna push that to the next session. So, on session 3, we are crossing off where it says gratitude journal entry number 1. What that also means is you will have more time with your students, more free time, so you will want to bring more activities to use with them. Okay? It'll be fun. Questions about that? And the following week, we will start talking about how to write that first entry and the nitty-gritty of that. Okay? Yes.
So the original plan shows that on the 4th session, they would do the second entry?
Right.
Or
That's
they
just gonna
doing
change to
less
1.
entry?
Yeah, yeah. That's right, that's right. So all the numbers will just adjust naturally. Okay? Questions? Good questions. Okay, so now I'd like to get into the nitty-gritty of this. So, 6th trait writing. Writing is an area that students really struggle with. In fact, I'm basing all of my research for my dissertation on writing and teachers and their comfort level with teaching writing. Do you think adult teachers, which they're adults, but do you think that they are comfortable teaching writing? They don't. They're not. That's what their research is revealing. Adults are not comfortable teaching writing. Why do you think that is? They don't know enough is exactly right. They don't feel comfortable with it. When it's an area that you're not comfortable with, have you ever had to teach a lesson and the teacher gave you that lesson area and you're like, of all the lessons, really? I love everything about this subject matter except for that. You're not saying that out loud, but you're thinking it. Because you're not comfortable with it, right? When teachers aren't comfortable, why do you think teachers aren't comfortable with writing? They don't know enough, but why do you think? What do you think?
Experience in school.
Yes, there's school experience, not enough training on it. Okay, right, what else?
They don't wanna make mistakes.
They don't wanna make mistakes, yes. That's good.
I feel like we don't do it enough, like we don't write enough.
We don't write enough, you're right. What else?
I think with the not writing enough, we also, like, even if we do write a lot, we don't get critiqued or get told how to fix it a lot.
Okay, yes, I think you're right, yes.
They, like, if they do make a mistake, it's really hard to admit that you've made a mistake to students because you don't want the students to think that you don't know what you're talking about. because
Yes,
you're a teacher.
and what we need to do with that is we need to change that and create a teachable moment when they make a mistake, because everyone makes mistakes. Think about this, every author, they have an editor who fixes their mistakes, who betters their writing, because no one's going to be perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. I remember when my principal, I was talking about how everyone makes mistakes. Have I told you this? When my principal backed right into the stop sign, right when I said that, and we could see it out our window. I'm like, case in point, right here. It's that portable stop sign that you take out to the crosswalk with after school and before school. Well, he pulled out in his truck, and there it went. And you know, we all make mistakes. So take it as a teachable moment, and then when they have a mistake, they make a mistake, they'll feel more comfortable in front of you. And sometimes you can explain why you made a mistake, and sometimes you can't, but you just have to power through and just say, all right, you know, we're gonna move forward with this. All right, let me tell you another reason. It's complicated. There are so many pieces to writing, okay? There are so many facets to it. It's overwhelming. It can be very overwhelming. So here's a statistic for you. There was an NAEP study in 2018, so not very long ago, and the NAEP is what collects all the data from all the schools and all the assessments. And this is what it revealed. 85%, 85, it's a lot, percent of 4th, 8th, and 12th graders are below proficient. So here's proficient. Okay, here is exceeds, and here's exemplary. Below proficient. So think of average. Below average. 85% of 4th, 8th, and 12th graders are below proficient in writing. That is terrible. That is terrible. We have an epidemic. There are several reasons that this is happening. One is, there for a long time, our state assessments did not address writing. So well-meaning teachers who are working hard and doing the best they can, they have enough on their plate, right? But what happened was several stopped teaching writing as much. They did less of it. And they put more energy into the math and the reading and the science and the social studies that were assessed. Some principals said, don't worry about writing. We're not being assessed on that. Okay? And that happened. Plus we have texting. That changes things. I'll tell you, the last 5 years I was teaching 5th grade, I was shocked because I saw something I never saw before. The writing went down, but I saw students not capitalizing the pronoun I. That never happened in 5th grade. They always had that figured out. And it just goes to show you that there wasn't as much time spent on grammar. I'm not pointing fingers. I get it. I know teachers are really busy and they're doing the best they can, but we have to do something about it, right? Now some of the assessments are asking for writing to show that they can demonstrate a skill. So imagine if you're a social studies teacher in middle school, for example, and the assessment is asking for them to have a written passage showing what they know about social studies. If they're bad writers, they may love social studies, but they may not be able to show what they know. And writing is more than just handwritten writing. Think of keyboarding. Think of digital literacy. Their ability to write is their ability to express themselves, not just in their community, but globally. We don't just communicate with our community. We communicate now globally. And this is their opportunity to present themselves on whatever platform, both professional and in a casual way. They need to be able to present themselves correctly. So we need to help them with this, okay? So about 30 years ago, when I first started teaching 6th grade core classes, which is a lot like a self-contained classroom, but also the 7th grade English classes, 6th trait writing came about. And I want to tell you, it is solid and it's a good thing. And recently, this federal government has picked up 6th trait writing as the best way to teach writing. And I think you'll probably agree when you hear more about it. I'll tell you why I love it. I've used it for all these years and it has really helped my students with writing. Okay, so what is 6th trait writing? But let me start by saying what we had before 6th trait writing. And some of you may have had this. Imagine getting a paperback and you get a B and you don't know why you have the B. There's no rubric. What was it? You know, how can I improve? That's a B. That's good enough. Do you think most kids are going up and asking about it? No, they're like, B's good enough for most students. There are a few conscientious students who do want to know. But here's the problem. Some teachers are going to count off based on grammar. Some will count off based on content. It just depends on the teacher. We may have some students who are excellent writers, but they have terrible grammar. And some teachers only look at the grammar, and they would get a D or an F, and they thought they were terrible writers. And the reverse is true. Some students had excellent grammar, but their story it was flat. You know, there was nothing to it. The grammar was good, and they got a good grade. That doesn't mean they're a good writer. So the great thing about 6th trait writing is it's well balanced, okay? Writing can be so overwhelming. So what I want to do with this is I want to start broad, okay, with the different traits, the 6 traits. So I have this for you where we encompass each of the 6 traits right here, and I want to talk to you about each of the traits. Then I want to tell you that once I go from this, then I do mini lessons to go along with each of the traits throughout the year, and I incorporate all these traits into different activities, starting with the gratitude journals, okay, which we will do with our students, okay? So this is great because it's like an instant rubric saying, these are the parts that I'm looking for when I grade your paper. These are the parts you want to remember when you write a paper, okay? How many of you remember having 6th trait writing in your classes growing up? So only a few of you, okay? So this is great for a great refresher and also great for everyone who's not heard about it because it is the push now. Okay, so ideas and content. That is where you want your student to have that idea and stay on topic. Some of you who teach primary grades, do your students always stay on topic?
Never.
The very hungry caterpillar. Caterpillar? I had a caterpillar in my backyard. Backyard? We used to go swimming in the pool, and the pool has green stuff in it. Green stuff. Okay, do you know what I mean? Okay. Well, we want them to stay on topic. But not only that, we want them to take that topic and really develop that topic. So we don't want a paper that's just off the top of their head. So that's why we have activities like Encyclopedia Explorer, which take ideas and content to the next level. We want to go beyond the common information and go deep and have rigor to what we're doing. And it causes our students to have more interesting papers, it's more interesting for the audience to hear and more interesting for the teacher to grade. Plus they're a standout. If they have any kind of an essay contest, they will stand out because they gave information that the average student doesn't give. So, ideas and content, you really want to spend time on that. Okay, so think about if I were writing a report about bananas or baseball, that I'm not going to go for the traditional information, I'm going to go for the more interesting information. Another way to do this is what I like to call going beyond the text. If we were reading in social studies right now and we learned about the Native American regions and we all learned the same information, but then you drew out of a hat and let's say you all are the Eastern Woodland Indians and you make a sign and okay, you're going to research and you're the Plains Indians and the Pacific Northwest Indians and the Southwest Indians, which Native Americans is the proper terminology that we want to use. Then I would have you go beyond the text and find more information than what our textbook had. And you could do that through the library. You could do that through the internet for reliable sources. You can even call places. I'll never forget when we were studying the Revolutionary War and the Battle of Bunker Hill. I told you this story. I had a student ask, why is it called the Battle of Bunker Hill? Because it was fought on Breeds Hill, as the book says. And Bunker Hill is next to it. Why was it not called the Battle of Breeds Hill? Good question. Let's find out. This was before we had Google. So I said, let's call Pitt State and find out. And this is how it works. I love the idea of a student-led classroom. So I have this, something like this. Hi, this is Marshall from Mrs. Abbott's 5th grade class, Climate History Department. We have a question about the American Revolution. Is there someone there who could answer a question for us? Okay, we did this in science, we did this all the time. How do you measure the layers of the earth and how can you measure the temperature if it's that hot? Okay, so we would call and find answers. And we got answers from Pitt State many times. So when I say this, don't gasp and clench your girls. Okay, you ready? So they call and they ask about the Battle of Bunker Hill, only to find out, they said, we don't know. We really don't. So we thanked them very much and we called the Smithsonian, who said, oh, why not? And it was long distance, but I had permission. They called the Smithsonian and they said, this is a debatable topic, but most experts believe that it was called the Battle of Bunker Hill because Breeds Hill had so many bunkers within it, which caused the soldiers to have places to hide, which was part of their success and why they won that battle. So they believe that that's why they called it that. But isn't that cool that we found that information? So going beyond the text is fun, it's exciting, and it really expands the horizons of your students. So that's developing the ideas and content and putting that into your paper is great. Okay, moving on, we have organization. Organization is just what it says, it's giving order to their writing. So it can be anything from having an introduction, body, and conclusion, hence the hamburger model. The top bun would be that introduction. The 3 paragraphs would be the tomato, lettuce, and hamburger, where we have our subtopics. And then the conclusion would be the bottom bun. Several of you probably had teachers that use that because it shows order. Now we don't want to do that forever. We do want to evolve away from that, but we've got to start with the training wheels with some kind of a model. Think of it this way, and students will identify with an analogy. So imagine if a new student came in here and I said, you can sit over there in that chair, we're on page 52. Would part of you feel a little bit like, kind of a little bit contracted, like I don't like how that felt? What if instead I said, hi, I'm Mrs. Abbott, I'll be your teacher, this is your awesome class, why don't you sit over here with team 2? We're in the middle of talking about writing, why don't you make yourself at home? And then we continue with our day, and at the end of the day I say, I hope you had a great day, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow. So all of a sudden I added an introduction and a conclusion. Do you feel better about that? Okay, if I'm going to answer the phone, what do most people do when they answer the phone? They say, hello. And back in the beginning of time, do you remember what they said? Ahoy. We'll see who remembers. Do you remember the book of useless information? Ahoy.
What?
Ahoy.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
The first phones, instead of saying hello, they would say ahoy. Maybe classroom management would have that.
wasn't it one of the, when we were doing the encyclopedia finding? Because they're so far away, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, well, back to, you answer the phone, you say hello, right? And that is an introduction. Or, hey, how's it going, right? You warm into it. Then you get into the content, and then what do you say at the end of a phone call usually? Goodbye, unless you're really mad. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, but introduction, body, and conclusion. Give that analogy to your students. And here's what the research is showing. And I'm that nerdy that just recently I was watching this video about this. It's called acute memory. But what it is if your brain already has a pattern for information, if you relate something to an analogy that they already know, they will be able to retain the new information faster because it will travel along the neurons into the brain in that same pattern and then expand, and they will learn faster. So use science to your benefit, okay? So having analogies is why. All right, so organization also includes writing sequence words and phrases. So I demonstrated a mini lesson on phrases and sequence words with the peanut butter and the crackers, where we did that, and it causes the paper to tie together smoothly. Okay, so you know all about that. Another piece is that you'd want to tell an order that makes sense. Some papers, it doesn't matter the order. If you're writing about what you're thankful for this season, it probably doesn't matter what you talk about first. But if you're telling a story about, let's say, how you spent your winter break, it makes sense to talk about the beginning, then the middle, then the end, right? Or if you're talking about your favorite kinds of meals, it would make sense to talk about breakfast, then lunch, then dinner. If you're talking about the Revolutionary War, it would make sense to talk about it in a sequential order. But some papers, it doesn't matter. So you want to encourage your students to think, is it a good idea to put this in an order? Okay? All right. So that's it for organization. And the next is voice. Voice is where they put their personality into what they're writing. So instead of just saying everything really flat, they will share some of their feelings and thoughts. Like, it might even be something like, think of the story about the girl who had to go to the birthday party and she didn't want to go. I was so mad when my mom forced me to go. No amount of hysterics could sway mama. Remember that? So she had a lot of voice in her writing. But if she just said, one day when I was young, I was invited to a party, my mother encouraged me to go, that doesn't have the passion in it. So having the voice is having some feeling in there. Some students, they're full of it. The kids that get in trouble a lot, oftentimes are really good at this. And there are some students who have to struggle with it, but we have different activities we can do to bring out the voice in your students. Okay, and voice ties into things like word choice, because when they're using really great word choice, it just lends itself to having good personality. Okay? All right. I guess these are backwards on here than they are here, but it doesn't matter. Maybe I need a quick drink. Sorry. Frog in that throat. Okay, word choice is my favorite. Word choice is where you have your students change up boring words and use more vivid vocabulary, more powerful words. So, I like to call boring words vanilla words. And by the way, there's absolutely nothing wrong with vanilla. But vanilla gets the job done. So if you say, when I went to Grandma's house, I had so much fun. We went to the pool, and it was really nice. My cousins were great. Do you see where it's all working, but it's kind of boring, okay? If I take out the words and I say, I had such an adventure at Grandma Millie's farm in South Dakota. My ornery cousins and I had all kinds of shenanigans when okay, do you see where I'm replacing words? So vanilla words are the words that get the job done. Sometimes people say, would the word tremendous or awesome be a banana split word, which is what we want to go for? And I say, no, that's not a banana split word. It's a more powerful word. I'll call it a hot fudge sundae word, but a banana split word is to me something like shenanigans, because you know or ornery tells you exactly what's going on. okay? So we want a word that really gets there. So I have a simulation that we're going to try, and I used to do this every year with my 5th graders. I did this summer with volunteers at the workshop. They were teachers, and actually principals came up and wanted to be the volunteers. I need 4 volunteers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, meet me in the hall. Meet me in the hall, because I have to tell you the secret information. And you all are going to hear a demonstration of banana split words and vanilla words, and we'll see if you can see the power of the word. Okay.
So you're so gonna
Use your words.
use your banana split words. Ha 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 ha.
No idea he was even trying to move. You have to tell children, use your words.
No, I had there was a student. I was like,
You wanna know what my student did?
not how we talk.
One of my kids went, Mrs. Kukovich, and then another one went, Mrs. Kukovich. That's the name of our teacher. And she turned around and looked at him and went, whack! And I was like, no, 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 no. You put your, yes. He had like this like board in his hand, and she was like, Mrs. Kukovich. And he went, Mrs. Kukovich. And she turned around and pushed the board into his face. And I was like, we do not use our hands. No, a student. I was like, we do not use our hands, we use our words.
The way you explained it, you made it sound like it was the teacher that did that.
I was like, Casey, I think you need to report her.
No, it was a student.
I know. I know. When you said we will not, I was like, what? You said it to your teacher? That's.
No, it was one of my students.
Wow, we were all very.
2 students.
One of my kids growls at me all the time.
Thank you.
He just sits in his chair and he goes,
Well, I hate that.
Our new little friend who has very
The one who was kickboxing.
yeah, kickboxing over by his he mocked one of the teachers the other day, and I was like,
All right, so here's the scene. Are you ready? The scene is you're at the movie theater looking at the different board of which movie to go to, and you're trying to figure out which one you want to go to. Your friends are leaving the theater, and we're going to find out if we can figure out their movie as they come out. So here they come out of the movie theater. Hey, how was your movie?
Okay. It was good.
Your movie was good? How was your movie?
It was fun.
And how was your movie?
Alright.
Are you guys like, I know which one I want to see? Okay, so they're going to come back. They're getting their steps today. And I'm going to have them say a banana split word. And I want you to notice if you can guess their genre of their story based on the word that they use. Okay? So, hey, how was your movie?
it was gory.
Okay, so we know it was some kind of a horror movie, right? How was your
it was hilarious.
Okay, so
Comedy.
the comedy.
It was very informative.
So a documentary.
Explosive. That's all I'm gonna say. Explosive.
Okay, so that's like the shoot 'em up movies, okay? So, do you see the power of a word? So even a word like awesome or fantastic isn't quite a banana split word, is it? It's hot fudge with lots of chocolate, but it's not quite a banana split word. So we want to go for the banana split word, and hence the banana split that's there for word choice. Okay, so we can't expect kids to use a banana split word every single time they write, but we want them to aim for it. And even if they miss, they land among the hot fudge. Okay, right? By the way, Les Brown had that quote, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you land among the stars. Les Brown from Look Out Baby on Your Left Man. That was his quote. Yeah. Okay, so word choice. Also, think about your 5 senses when you add word choice to a story. Think about when an author is writing the setting of the story, and they give you so much detail you feel like they're there. That is really good word choice when you can see like the pinkish hue of the mountain range encapsulating the clouds or whatever it is, and you're just like, I want to be there. All right, so replacing boring words for exciting words, that's word choice. We also want to make sure that our students don't repeat banana split words, because if they say adventurous too many times, or they say gory too many times, or hilarious too many times, that's too much, right? So they can change it up, and that's when you can have them use a thesaurus. Isn't it fun when you write a paper, or am I that nerdy? When you're writing a paper and you need to change up a word because you've already used it, and or the word you're thinking of isn't quite the word you want to use, and you find that perfect word and you're like, I can't wait. This is how it reads this. Like, this is some good stuff. Do you know what I mean though? We want to teach our students how to do that with a thesaurus. We don't want them to skip a word because they don't know how to spell it either. We want them to use the word that they have. But we want to say it's okay for them to repeat words like the and. I had a student once who was mistaken. They thought they couldn't repeat any words. And it's just the special words that we don't want to repeat. Like, how do you even write a sentence without our, basic words like and the and a. So our kid, writing was really difficult that day. Okay. Also, giving more detail. So if a student's writing about their summer and they're talking about the pool, they might say the crisp, cool water. So just instead of just water, if they're talking about that they love grandma's cookies, what if they said warm chocolate chip cookies fresh out of the oven? Instead of just cookies. What kind of cookies? What are your favorite cookies? If you're saying your favorite pizza, do you like thin or thick? Or, tell a little bit more. Do you like extra cheese? Do you like it slightly overcooked? How many of you like your pizza slightly overcooked? Some of you. There's such a thing. I'm in that club. Okay. So, moving along, we have what most people think of when they think of writing, which is the sentence structure and fluency, the mechanics and conventions. The sentence structure and fluency is that we want complete sentences. Have you ever graded a paper in your internship and it's like the whole paper from the top of the notebook paper to the bottom, there's one period, it's all one big run-on? That is impressive, but horrible all at the same time. We need to show our students how to have complete sentences. Reading a sentence out loud or reading a story out loud really helps them know where to put those periods and pauses, because they can't read all that without having to stop and breathe, and that helps them to figure out where those periods and commas go. In addition to, with the structure and fluency, we want them to have a combination of long and short stories. So if I say, my brother loves gory horror movies, period, I don't. That's a long sentence and a short sentence. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be every other, but we don't want compound sentence after compound sentence after because it's just too much. We need to break it up with some short sentences, and there's nothing wrong with a quick little sentence. In fact, it's a good thing. All right? So we want to get our students where they start doing that kind of thing. Finally, we get to, like the sequence word? Sorry, my own humor. Okay, mechanics and conventions. So this really boils down to proofreading. This is where we're looking for things like spelling, grammar, like our commas and apostrophes and quotations and usage and that type of thing, okay? And now we finally have a balance. So as a teacher's grading, they can weight all of this. And actually, the state recommends that we put more weight on the top two categories, the ideas and content, and the organization, than anything else. More so than the sentence structure and fluency and the mechanics and conventions. Some teachers keep them all equal, but they always say that the sentence structure, fluency, and the mechanics and conventions are always at the bottom of the totem pole. How about that? Because when you're writing, we want to go for the writing. Then we can go back and edit, right? Okay, hence, great authors have editors, right? Okay, so in a nutshell, how are you feeling about sixth grade writing? I'd like for you to talk with your team briefly, just 30 seconds. What's your takeaway from this? Do you like it? Does it make sense? What's that?
It breaks things up in the categories, especially for kids, because like you just said to them that they need to have all of these things, and then like you just get it.
Yes. I had a full week of training on this, but it was so complicated that they gave it to us. They didn't.
I mean, I had those things, had been talking about this.
That's the hard part, because teachers will say all these things, but they don't necessarily have a way to encapsulate a visual with it, and it just feels like so much. Once you look at it here, it's like, really cool.
It's really just things that aren't really that complicated.
Right, it's a good problem.
guess like my only question is like related to
That's
I
what
love
our secretaries work.
Okay, would anyone like to share their thoughts on this? Any takeaway? Does this feel doable? What do you think?
It feels doable, and I love like how it's structured. The only question that I have is like, how do I not overanalyze student work? Like, how do
Okay.
I not be
Okay.
like nitpicky?
Let me tell you how. You want to start slow. You want to start with an introduction, like here are the basic, the general concepts. Then you stop and you have mini lessons with each of the concepts. So the organization with the sequence words, that was just one lesson. I would do other lessons too to go along with each of the traits. And then you build it into a scaffolding where you start slow. So I don't know if anyone has seen this, but on the board here behind Carly, I have, and I will be sharing this with you soon, but actually when we start talking about how to put together the gratitude journal, I have this differentiated all the way from kindergarten where they write what they're thankful for and they put any kind of word that starts with the letter of the week, which is F, and they have frogs, fish, flashlights, all these different words. And then the child gets to choose that word and they can illustrate it. Because when you're working with kindergartners, some of them can write a word and some of them need to know how to hold a pencil or need to know how to hold a crayon correctly. And you need to start where they are. We don't want them frustrated, we want to build their confidence. So some are starting with just the illustration and we're making sure that they're holding that correctly. Okay? Then we have some students who can write the word from the board and they can transfer it on to the lined paper. And then they can illustrate when they're finished. We have some kindergartners who can write the sentence, maybe just fill in the blank. Today I'm thankful for, and fill in the blank with fish, then they can illustrate it. Some can write the whole sentence on the lined paper. You see how this is very, very much scaffold for ability and differentiation. We build up and we slowly add things like the date, February 15th, comma, 2016. We then, today I'm thankful for a fish, and now we have reasons. They make good pets and they're pretty. We illustrate. We continue on and we build up all the way to middle school level where we have an essay about fish. But let me read what my fifth graders were writing by the end of the year. And remember, we started with fish. Monday, February 15, 2006. Fish are swimming with benefits. So we have a topic sentence and a suggestion, okay? For starters, as pets, they provide hours of entertainment and responsibility for children. Also, with their vivid colors and unique shapes, fish are often the focus of attention to both divers and aquariums. In conclusion, my favorite aspect of fish is their delicious contribution to dinner tables around the world. You just can't eat a crispy fried basket of catfish. In my opinion, fish are a valuable resource to all. Did you hear all the traits? So what we did is, over the years, we slowly introduced each of the traits into the journals where we incorporated it into the writing. This is a lesson that will take all day and we'll get into the details, but I'm so glad you're thinking about it because there's so many components to putting it all together. So that's why the scaffolding is what worked for me, and that's why I'm sharing that with you. Okay? So the journal is going to be valuable in that way. All right? So I will share that there is one more trait that's not on here. There's a new something. It's called 6+1 traits. Does anyone want to guess what that seventh one is? I will tell you. It's presentation. And it is that the paper looks nice, that the margins look clean, that if they made a mistake, they erased the mistake and they wrote neatly. If their word processing, all their tabs are the same, that their font is the same all the way through, that kind of thing. Okay? That's the +1. Yes?
Is that something that you would look for in all grades or like starting at a certain grade?
I wouldn't do it quite yet. I mean, presentation, I'd have them start erasing, for example. But you just would go for, right now you're hearing about intermediate grades.
Right.
So I wouldn't do any of this. I wouldn't do all of this with kindergarten and up. This is more third and up. But you have to, like I said, scaffold it. So as we get into the journal, that's really going to give you a lot of clues on how to do it. But you can go ahead and get into the mini lessons, like the adjectives with the word choice and that type of thing. So like the sequence lesson, that could work, do you think? How many of you are in a 5th grade classroom? Think sequencing would be good for them? Yes. How about 4th grade? Yes? How about 3rd grade? Sequencing would work? The peanut butter and crackers? Yes. Do you think 2nd grade could handle it? Giving a transition word if they're listed for them, maybe clearly? Yeah? 1st grade? Okay. So I worked with a team of primary teachers, and this is what they said. Let's use sequence words with show and tell. Let's have the first few months where they do show and tell as is. But then we're going to have a forum, and they're going to use words like, first I'm going to tell you why I brought my fire truck. After that, okay, they'll say, or they'll have their points. Or 1 month maybe using word choice. Instead of just saying, this is my teddy bear, his name is Teddy, which is usually the case. Or he's brown, his name is Brownie, okay? But saying more. His fur is very soft. Now we have word choice, okay? We've added one of the 5 senses in. Or he is very cuddly. Or he is very squishy. Okay, so they can use some different words. He likes to sleep in my bed next to me, and he wears his purple pajamas that we bought at Build-A-Bear. Okay, so they can add some details, but they can work on this with their parents with that, okay? So we had preschool teachers and primary teachers all in this team as we created activities to work our way up. Even though I'm just teaching you intermediate grades, and I know Dr. Steck taught you the writing for primary, I still can't help but tell you some of the writing for primary because I had students who were writing on a primary level, but also because what I have is scaffolded from kindergarten all the way up to high school. Okay? All right. Does that help a bit? So next session, you're going to get a lot more detail. But I want to start broad because if I give you too much detail on the first day, it's going to overwhelm you and it will overwhelm your students. Okay? Yes?
And I just wanted to add, I'm at Carl Junction, and Megan Getz, first year teacher for Pitt, is across the hall. And I stepped into her room last week, and I was just, talking with her at the end of the day. And on her whiteboard, she had a bunch of Post-it notes, and she said that they had just started their gratitude journal project, and the way she had opened it or started it was having them all write something nice or something they're thankful about within the classroom on a sticky note and put it on the board. So it was a really cool.
That's awesome. Whatever works. I think she put that on Facebook now that you say that.
She might have.
It's really
I think I saw that
colorful,
too.
all different. I was like, those are expensive Post-its. The yellow ones, with the, okay, I think of these things, okay. All right, so so now all you do with 6th grade sobriety next week is just say what they are and give a little introduction about each of them, okay? That's all. Are you good? Okay, we'll dig in more deeply, but that's all for that. Moving along, we're going to talk now about something else. Now, I'm going to give you a choice real quick. We can come back at 1, or we could stay an extra 10 minutes. Would you like to just stay an extra 10 minutes or come back?
No, I want to stay 10 minutes.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
If anyone absolutely has to go, you can go. But I want to finish this, and I won't have that since we don't have class on Thursday. I've got to get this in. Okay, you good?
Yes.
Or I guess, I'm thinking because of practicum being at 2, I would say 2. You know where I'm going. But technically, in the program for Pitt State, it is 2, or it's 1 to 3, but I divided it in half, right? So really, technically, I can ask, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, if you absolutely have to go, you can go, I get it. I won't count it against you. Okay, so, moving along. Completely different. Please take this sheet right here. Flip it over. Now, close your eyes. I do this every semester, and this is always the direction. I want you to think of your day yesterday, from top to bottom. I want you to give it a number on a scale from 1 to 10. 10 means it was the best day of your life. 1, it was the worst day of your life. 5 is in the middle. Give it a number. No one will see this but you. Write that number down, circle it, and flip it back over. Yes? Okay. So, you're old enough to know that in life, we have our good days and our bad days. Don't you think our lives are a lot like the weather? Some days are bright and sunny and wonderful and awesome, and some days are rainy and stormy and windy and icy and awful, right? Okay, so every day is a little different. But here's the thing. We sometimes default to thinking on the negative, and sometimes people are very optimistic. So what's the difference between being optimistic or pessimistic? Does anyone know? Who would like to share? Yes.
I mean, being optimistic is if you see a problem and you are having to face that problem instead of being like, I can't do it. You like figure out different ways to conquer it and then try and find the good in the problem.
Yes, an optimistic person finds the good in every situation. They look at the bright side, they're very positive. Pessimistic people are people who are always looking for the negative. And it's no fun to be around pessimists. And probably in your lifetime you've been around a pessimist before where it's always just everything's wrong. The sun's too bright, the sky's too blue, the water's too wet, right? And that is draining. Well, there's actually science that backs that up. So I'm going to share this with you.
Hi, Kate here. Welcome to Wellcast. If you've been here before, welcome back. If it's your first time, check out our introductory video. Long story short, it's 100 wellness exercises in 100 days. You in? Let's talk about 2 little words that will make you happier. Happy birthday? I do? Nope. Today, we're going to talk about saying thank you. Did you know expressing gratitude is scientifically proven to make you happier? Here's the deal. Humans operate on what's called a hedonic treadmill. It means we generally stabilize at one level of happiness. Going to a party or going to the beach might perk you up for a minute, but generally your level of happiness stays constant, whether you spend a day at the park or at the doctor. Basically, we take the things that make us happy for granted, so they stop psyching us up. By practicing gratitude and constantly examining what you're thankful for and why, you stop ignoring what makes you happy. Essentially, being actively grateful will make you a happier person. But don't take my word for it. Dr. Robert Emmons, a psych professor at UC Davis and author of Thanks, The New Science of Gratitude Can Make You Happier, has been doing experiments on gratitude for more than a decade. For example, Dr. Emmons gave 300 people journals and divided these people into 3 groups. One group had to write daily lists of things that they were grateful for. Another group had to write daily lists of things that annoyed them. And the last group, well, they could write about whatever popped in and out of their minds. Batman, strawberries, whatever. Emmons found that people who wrote about things that they were grateful for had a much higher level of well-being than the other 2 groups. Not only that, they slept better and exercised more. Group A's simple act of writing down what they were thankful for seemed to kickstart their brains. So, it's time to kickstart your brain with today's wellness exercise. Take out your Wellcast journal. Crack it open to a clean page and write, "Things I am grateful for" at the top. If you're the kind of person that likes to be micromanaged, draw 3 columns and label people, places, and things. Take 5 minutes each night this week and add things to those columns. At the end of the week, take a look at the list. It's pretty long, huh? It's time for phase 2. Time to express a little gratitude, out loud, to others. Look, we're not saying you have to be one of those people who thanks trees for oxygen. I mean, you can, but just go down your list. Pick one of the things you wrote down and think about who gave it to you. Actually expressing gratitude will help you get off that hedonic treadmill and make you feel better about all the little things. Draft a letter to this person. It's okay. You can explain to them that a YouTube video is telling you to do this. But then get serious. Tell the person what you're so grateful for and why, and then thank them sincerely for it. If you're feeling adventurous, ask them out to dinner, and then you can thank them in person. After you send the letter or return from dinner, take out that Wellcast journal one last time. Open it up to a clean page and write down how you feel now, in detail. Are you like one of the folks in Dr. Emmons' study and feeling pretty awesome? Let us know how your gratitude experiment went. Now that we're all in a good mood, let's do a recap. We learned today that humans take for granted the things that make them happy. And the best way to shake up that paradigm is to spend time thinking about the things that you're grateful for. Studies show that by saying thank you, your general sense of well-being increases. To get that happy ball rolling, write down a list of things that you're grateful for in your journal, pick one, and write a letter to the person who's responsible for that thing. Tweet us at WatchWellCast. Email us at
Okay, so 10 years of research. What do you think? What do you think about what you learned just now? Anyone? Talk to your groups. Just 30 seconds.
Yeah, I believe it. You're always thinking about the things that you're not happy about, you're gonna not be happy for it.
I think it can especially be powerful for like elementary classrooms and class where we're we're just trying to avoid so many things that they just don't understand.
Yeah, like the reading interest inventory, they put like one of their 5 top important things, and I'm like, yeah, and that's just crazy.
Okay. Would anyone like to share in class something that you talked about at your team? Would you say that this is powerful? And that there's science behind it, that you will be healthier if you're positive. And you know, here's the thing, human beings, we all default to being negative. We don't want to, we know better, but it just happens because life is hard. It's not always just a wonderful, delightful day. Even though when we were kids, we watched these movies and saw happily ever after, right? But life is not always going to be happy, and we need to have tools to deal with that as adults. But also think about your children. Think about the kids that you work with. And I want to tell you, some of the examples that you gave me already are just heartbreaking of what's going on in their lives and what they've already shared with you. Do you want to put it on me just so that she'll hear this too? Well, I mean, she can hear, hi, my kid. But anyway, so your students have hard stuff going on. I remember observing a student teacher last year who, in a kindergarten classroom, of the 20-some students, 10 of the parents were either in jail or they had passed away from something like a drug-related activity or a suicide or different. They were very heavy things going on. These are kindergartners. I want to tell you that anything we can do to help them look at the positive in their lives is substantial. Think about the socks that we talked about at the beginning. If they are having that heaviness from their home life, it's going to be very difficult for them to learn in your classroom. But if you can help put some kind of a balm on that, and you can help them with that hurt by having them leave it outside and coming into a safe place where they can concentrate on what's right instead of what's wrong, then you're giving them a gift. And you will be able to have better results in your teaching. Because just like the science says here, they're out of their limbic system into their prefrontal cortex. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol. Some of you are like, oh, that's what it's been lately for some too. For some of you maybe. But that's why you're so tired, because your body is fighting to get that cortisol down, because that's hard on your body. So instead of your body being able to take care of your organs and other pieces of your body, the cells are working to squelch down that cortisol. So that's why stress causes you to get sick more easily, causes disease to happen more easily. So we want to help each other stay in that positive state. But it's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with you if you have days that you're just feeling really negative. But the point is, let's know what to do with it. So having a gratitude journal where you cause yourself to give evidence from your own life of what's good can reverse that. It's amazing how powerful gratitude journals can be. Now this is perspective. This is not something I share with students, but something I'm going to share just a piece of this with you. You won't see anything, you'll hear this. This is Dr. Wayne Dyer, but this is when you look at the entire world. When we ask the question, what is the most popular name in the world? And it's Muhammad, right? It's in this category, but let's think of the whole world and not just what we see, okay? And you're going to feel really good after you hear this, because number one, you're going to find out that you're rich. And I mean that. Are you ready?
Our world from such a compressed perspective, the need for acceptance, understanding, gratitude becomes glaringly apparent. So therefore, it concludes, if you have food in the refrigerator, clothes on your back, a roof overhead, and a place to sleep, you're richer than 75% of the world. Just that. Doesn't that call for some gratitude? If you woke up this morning with more health than illness, you are more blessed than the million who will not survive this week because of illness. If you have money in your bank, any money in the bank, or even in your wallet, and spare change in a dish someplace in your life, you are among the top 8% of the world's wealthy. 92% of the people don't have that. If you can attend a church meeting without fear, that is, fear of arrest or torture or death, you are more blessed than 3 billion people in the world. And if you've never experienced the danger of battle or the loneliness of imprisonment or the agony of torture or the pangs of starvation, you're ahead of 500 million people in the world today. If your parents are still alive or still married, you are very rare, even in the United States. So, if you have the opportunity to think as you choose to think, to worship as you choose to worship, and you have a little bit of change in your pocket, and you've got your health, and you've got someone that cares about you, then you have an awful lot to be grateful for.
Wow, wake up call, right? We don't think about that every day, and that's normal. It's okay, don't feel bad if you Sunday when it was raining, I didn't feel like going to church. I was like such a brat to myself. I was like, I don't want to get out in the rain. And I remember we had a guest speaker who said that they would they would walk to their church, and it would take them 3 hours to walk there to get to the church in his third world nation. 3 hours, and he was so thankful that they had a church that they could walk to. And I'm thinking, here I was, not wanting to get out on the rainy day, I just want to stay with my dog on my feet and, just take it easy and watch something at home. And then I watch something like this, and I'm like, okay, just get it together and go to church. Get in your car and drive to church. It's going to be okay. And that's just me using my own self-reflection, but it's totally normal. So I'm saying I do it, we all do it, we all get to that point in life where we don't realize how good we have it. But having this, perspective. I bet you would like this. Would you say perspective for sure? Because you fit some of that.
Oh, yeah.
You've been through some things with the with your battle.
Yeah.
So profound. And people who've been through things, they're so mature, right? And it's because they get it on a different level. And that's why you're so much more mature than kids, because you've had life experiences that cause you to know what really matters, right? So something like this just grows us up in a hurry. It just causes us to go, wow, life is. But I'm going to cheer you up now, okay? So are you ready for this one? These will be posted on Canvas for you. If you want to use this with your students, you can. You may recognize Jessica.
Look, I can be a son. Now, my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I like my school. I like anything. I like my dad. I like my cousins. I like my aunts. I like my Allisons. I like my mom. I like my sisters. I like my dad. I like my hair. I like my haircuts. I like my pajamas. I like my stuff. I like my room. I like my whole house. My whole house is great. I can do anything good. Yeah.
That's really good. Don't you want her in class? Okay, and finally, this is a Huggies commercial. Don't worry, be happy. You're so good. Okay, so it's easy to find the beauty in a really great day. Okay, so we all good if someone needs to go for whatever reason. Okay, thank you for staying. Okay, so it's easy on a great day to see all these wonderful things happen. But I want to tell you what I have learned over the years. And by the way, I learned about gratitude from a woman named Sarah Von Brothnich. She is someone who was a guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show 30 years ago, and Oprah challenged everyone to keep a gratitude journal. And I was working with middle schoolers at the time, and they were like, I wish I had a trampoline like so-and-so, or I wish I had Birkenstocks, back then that was a cool thing, like so-and-so, or I wish I was in this friend group, and they were just, everything was wrong, you know, not all of them, but a lot of them, they just felt sorry for themselves because that's just the nature of being a teenager, right? And I thought, they could use this gratitude journal, and that's when I started using it in the classroom, right? And I saw all the benefits, tied 6th grade writing into it, but I want to give credit where credit is due. The book Simple Abundance by Sarah Von Brothnich goes into detail about this, and it was introduced on the Oprah Show. Okay, so moving along, I was telling you that as I have done this over the years, and I'm going to tell you, I don't write in a journal every single day. I go in spurts, but I have found that on the days that are the hardest, the worst days, I find some little hidden treasures that I never would have found. So I'm going to prove that to you. So for example, when my father had congestive heart failure, and it was rough, but I'm going to tell you, some of my favorite memories with him they were during that time. So I remember this piece, like when he could hardly even talk, we may get one sentence out of him in a day. And I remember him, you know, I was by his side nonstop, but I remember him whispering this, and it probably took him 5 minutes from start to finish to get to this. But he said, "Where is your mother?" And I said, "She's in the kitchen." And he said, "Go tell her I love her." That right there, even though that the day was tough, we had that nugget, you know. When you lose someone, your family, they oftentimes will be there for each other, and they come together in a new way. You have a new, fresh aspect of what's going on. You have new perspective. All of a sudden, the little things are little, you know, and the profound things are what rise up. I will say also, at his funeral, when the two gentlemen that rode the motorcycles for the procession from the church to the cemetery in Overland Park, and they said they've been doing this for 17 years, and they've never seen a procession as long as my dad's. They said he must have really been loved, and he was. But I'm telling you that to tell you that he was the most positive person on the planet. He grew up during the Arab-Israeli War. He watched his father shot. He was the oldest of 7. He was 9 years old when this happened. He dug the grave and buried his father, but he was so positive. I could tell you stories and stories and stories about him, but his whole life was about being positive and cheerful and cheering everyone else up. And do you know where I get the good morning from him? When I would answer the phone, or when he would answer the phone, it was always good morning, no matter what was happening. He was always very positive, and that's a good thing. I'm blessed that I was around that all my life. But I will tell you that he had so many friends. When you are positive, people want to be around you. When you're really negative, people don't. And I've been there. I've been negative before, and it's not fun to be in that spot. But I have to tell myself, hey, I'm going to choose to be positive today. But when I write in my journal on a day that I've had a bad day, I find these wonderful things that happen. So I'm going to challenge you the next time you have a really bad day to write everything good about your day, and all of a sudden you're going to find something really good that happened. But everyday life can have treasure. So here are some categories. And so I want you to take this sheet and write down a few categories just for yourself, and we're really going to kind of cut this down the middle. You're going to write some things here, and then you're going to write something else later here on this side. So on the left-hand side, some things you could write is even though blank, comma. So even though it's raining, that's a good thing. I don't have to water my flowers. Or even though, what? What could you say? Even though this happened, you could come up with something to go along with it. Even though it's raining, it's a good day to, after church, stay in and read a good book, right? Even though I don't feel like getting out to church, I'm glad I can get in my car and drive there and not have to walk for 3 hours, okay? Another area, the little things can be something that you write about. Are you okay with that? Okay. The little things like, do you ever get that really good parking spot? I know for me yesterday, it was nice that I had leftovers. I didn't have to cook dinner, and they were good. The little things like yesterday, several people, I would compliment them on what they were wearing, and they would think, it's my new fall sweater, I finally got to wear it. Sometimes it's just like wearing that fall sweater for the first time. Little things. The sky's the limit on the little things. Sometimes it's nice surprises. Did you get a message from someone you haven't heard from for a while? Like a text or an email or something, a nice little surprise? Did you find something you've been looking for? Did you buy something and it turned out it was on sale? There was an extra percentage off when you got up there. Sometimes it's those little things. I have a whole category just that says dog, okay? Because, where's Autumn? Yeah, you can relate to this one. You know, those little faces that my dog will make, and then when he puts his chin on my leg and presses down, I feel like it's a hug. You guys who have dogs know what I'm talking about. Like, that brings me joy, and I'm thankful for that. But again, these are just examples of how the little things can be, the nice surprises. Nature. Did anyone notice the sunsets lately? The temperature, the breezes. And then there are all kinds of other ideas that will come into your life. Maybe you have something, I mean, what is it about a brand new like bottle of shampoo? I mean, it's exciting. I don't know, it doesn't take much over here. But there are just little things that happen that are good. So those are just a few ideas, okay, to spur ideas for you. Now, on the right-hand side of the page, I'd like for you to write a bullet list of every single thing you can think of that was good about your day yesterday. And if you want to set that down for now, that's okay, and she can listen. Yeah, that'd be good. So everything good about your day. Maybe you woke up before the alarm. Maybe you had coffee already made. Maybe you, what is it? What was good about your day? Everything good. Did you have a good lunch? Did you have help from a friend? Did an animal do something to make you smile? You didn't have to go to class. Did you have a full tank of gas, possibly, or just enough to get where you were going? This is for your eyes only. I'm not going to look at this. This is just for you. Did you watch something good? Did you hear a good song? Did you watch a good video? Did you hear from a friend? Did you sleep good the night before? Write everything you can think of, and when you feel like you've written everything, reread your list and really take it in, and then try to, my challenge is for you to add at least 2 more items to your list. Sometimes those best items come after you put the obvious down. Did you have clarity on a lesson plan? chance, put a star by that one that surprised you, that just was your favorite. Like, wow, I almost missed that. Or I didn't give it the time it deserves to really appreciate that. And now, I'd like for you to turn that back over, look at the number you had before, and do you want to change your number? If you want to change your number, change it. And that means you just had a paradigm shift, and that's a really healthy thing. That means that you were able to take evidence from your life and rewrite your story of how you look at yesterday. Now imagine if you can do that for students every day. What I did was I had them write Monday through Thursday in their journal, and on Friday they would present their journals to one another. So we had the speaking skills, and I'll introduce all that to you. But it was really a wonderful activity. We won't use bullet lists, but we are going to keep a gratitude journal. So when you come next, I'm going to give each of you a gratitude journal for yourself, and we're going to start class by writing in them once I talk about them. I hope that this made an impact on you. But I also want to say, just in summary, one, on a week from now, you'll introduce the 6 traits of writing. Just talk about them, tell a little bit about each trait, and that's all. It's just an introduction. You will have your students understand what gratitude means. You can show a video that I just showed you, like Jessica's daily affirmations or the commercial. I also have some stories that we didn't read, but you can read if you'd like. That there are 3 stories on gratitude, if you want to read one of those or all of those, or if you want to find a story of your own. Then you're going to have your students come up with the brainstorm, people, places, and things like you saw in the Emmons video. Have them write what they're thankful for, the people, the places, and the things. We'll talk more about this in class, but each student will have one of these to fill out, and that's all for next Tuesday. Yes?
Do we need to have one of the brainstorms, like, filled out before we go to have them displayed on our board?
It's up to you. If you would like to, I have extras right here. If you'd like to have that visual, you can do that. So they're right here if you'd like. That's a good idea. Okay, so that's going to conclude that. I will see you all in practicum. And we did it. Thank you again for staying.
Oh, what are you doing? Very much.
They were just here.
I'm sorry, you're good.